Hey book readers, I'm a dad. I have 2 bio daughters and 1 foster son. And during my 8 years of dadding, I've stumbled into the 2 secret ingredients needed to be the best parent ever. 1, lots of sugar, 2, lots of TV. But what makes a good or bad fictional father? Let's figure it out as I chat about 5 good dads and 5 bad dads from 10 books that I've read. Now first up is Count Alexander Ilyich Rostov from A Gentleman in Moscow. And he's a man who's sentenced to house arrest in a hotel in Moscow. If he tries to leave, he'll be killed. So he's isolated, alone, and seemingly floating around life without a purpose. But he's not bitter or angry about his lot in life. He's a gentleman. So he'll make the best of it. What does he do? Well, he gives his existence meaning by forming relationships with the others who are either staying in the hotel or working there. And one of those first connections is as a father figure for Nina, who's this young girl who's also staying at the hotel and starts exploring the hotel with the Count. And they're best buddies. They make mischief and play games together to make their time at the hotel enjoyable. And eventually, of course, Nina grows up and moves away. However, circumstances yet again make him the caregiver for another young girl, this time the 5-year-old daughter of Nina named Sophia. The Count is just a genuine, likable, lovely man. He's charming and thoughtful, so he makes a wonderful, excellent dad to this orphaned little girl, doing his best to give her a life full of love and meaning. Up next on the good side of things is The Man from The Road. What lengths would you go to for your children? The gritty, deplorable setting of The Road pushes that question to its limits. And it's in this dark place that the light of fatherhood shines brightly, where a man reveals to his son how to carry the fire. There are big and small moments in The Road where the man shows how much he loves his son, and that includes shielding him as much as he can from the evils of the world. But the man realizes that safeguarding his son only goes so far. The boy needs to become more and more self-reliant too. It's a delicate balancing act that every dad has to manage. In this terrible setting, the man is still a father. He's still responsible for protecting his son and teaching him how to act. We see that through his actions and his words. But despite desperation and hopelessness, the man in this book sacrifices everything so that his boy can live a better life. And what would a list of good fathers be without Ned Stark from A Game of Thrones? Not only does Ned Stark have his own 5 kids, he takes in an illegitimate son and a foster son. Now, I'm not saying that he's the chummiest dad of all time to the last 2, but he certainly teaches them all what it looks like to be caring, trustworthy, and loyal. These are qualities that are in short supply in the book's world of Westeros. Now, there are a couple of things you can accuse Ned of. First, it seems like he has a favorite son and a favorite daughter. And I know that different ages mean different expectations, and the relationship between each parent and child is unique, but I feel like poor Rickon is all but forgotten, and Arya is unquestionably the apple of Ned's eye. And secondly, he tries to shelter his kids too much. Westeros is this harsh place, but the Starks live on the outskirts in Winterfell, and it seems like Ned wanted to keep it that way in order to protect his children's joy and innocence. Like I said, he's a good dad overall, but he certainly has realistic faults. Next up, another good dad is the Scholar from Hyperion. At times, we all long for our kids to be that little baby or toddler that they once were. We watch home videos to experience the nostalgia of their little voices and unique way of looking at the world. And The Scholar's Tale, which is a small part of Hyperion, hits all the feels for parents. It's about a father-daughter relationship with Saul Weintraub as the father and Rachel as his daughter. In the first part of the story, Rachel grows up into a normal woman, but an accident at the time tombs on Hyperion causes her to start aging backwards. She's getting confused and her parents don't know what to do, so ultimately they decide to just pretend like everything is normal. Meanwhile, as Rachel is getting younger and younger, Saul is receiving dreams about how he must return her to the time tombs. It seems like the only way for Rachel to be cured, so he is now venturing to the planet Hyperion as a last-ditch effort to save her. It's heartbreaking, tear-jerking stuff, and I can't imagine seeing one of my kiddos unlearn all the things that they know, it would be the worst thing possible. And that's what makes the emotions of the scholar's tale so powerful. And the last good dad I'll be talking about is Geo Lawson from In the Lives of Puppets. Robots are the only living thing in this world, and Geo is one of them. He's an android. But more than that, he's a tinkerer. He lives off-grid, away from the city, deep in the woods, near a junkyard that's filled with tons of metal odds and ends. Geo is also the adopted father of the last human child, named Victor. Geo is incredibly protective of Vic, and for good reason. If anyone becomes aware of Victor's existence, he'll be killed. This, of course, becomes a big deal when another android named Hap comes into the picture, and we learn more about Victor's world and his dad's past. And soon, it's not Geo who's risking everything for his son, but the script is flipped and Vic is risking everything for his dad. What I like about this book is how it shows that fatherhood isn't just one thing. It's a relationship with many different variations, and even beings with, things that are totally unlike one another can share that bond. Now we're moving on to the worst dads category, the bad dads. And we're starting with Father/Adam Black from The Library at Mount Char. In this strange fantasy horror novel, Carolyn is abducted by a man known as Father, or Adam Black. He's a cruel, godlike being, and Carolyn, is just one of 12 adopted children who's forced to go to Father's giant library where he keeps everything he's learned over thousands of years. It's there that Carolyn focuses on her branch of study, languages. Real ones, fictional ones, animal ones, past ones, present ones, future ones. But as difficult as it might seem to learn all of these languages, she's gotten off easy since several of the other children go into darker areas of education that break them physically, mentally, or emotionally. And Father is powerful enough that if any kid misbehaves, he tortures them. He kills them, and then he brings them back to life as some kind of sick lesson. While this book has several surprises in it, the most twisted of all is probably how Father tries to get Carolyn to believe that his evil actions serve a greater purpose. He insists that his cruelty is actually an act of love. And that's why this godlike guy is on my Mount Rushmore of terrible, no good dads. Up next is Prospero from The Night Circus. After realizing his daughter Celia has a talent for magical manipulation, the famous illusionist Prospero bets another magician that his style of real magic is more powerful than the other magicians. The two men agree that they'll both train young kids until they grow up and they're ready to duel, with only one being declared the winner. Yes, entering your kid into a competition like this is bad, but what's worse is Prospero uses Celia as a means to an end. He's a sadistic father who abuses her physically and emotionally with intense training and little care for how she feels about any of it. In fact, the only reason he raises her at all is to prove a point to the other magician. And now let's move on to another bad dad, and that's Dr. Moreau from The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. Carlotta Moreau takes care of the animal-human hybrids her father, the loving but uber-protective Dr. Moreau, created. After several years of this, Carlotta and her dad find themselves in a bit of a pickle when Eduardo Lizalde shows up at their home. He's a charming but clearly not great dude who's the son of the man financially supporting Dr. Moreau's research, and Eduardo is instantly smitten with Carlotta's incredible beauty, and he wants to marry her. And that's where the issues with Dr. Moreau's dadship ramp up a notch. See, he's overly protective until he isn't, until he sees the dollar signs and security that would come from Carlotta getting hitched to Eduardo. Not that this is any different from what was happening at a time when the book is set necessarily, when the practice of marrying off daughters in exchange for something was commonplace. But it's the thing that causes Carlotta and Dr. Moreau's relationship to come crumbling down. And it's what kickstarts her to ask questions about his research and motivations. Obviously, Dr. Moreau isn't the worst dad out there. He may be strict, but he does care deeply for Carlotta. However, with the big picture in mind, he falls on the bad dad side of things. Next up is Old Nick from Room. This is a quick one, but it's going to contain some spoilers, so you may need to skip ahead if you haven't read this book yet. Old Nick is the father of 5-year-old Jack, but as anyone who's read this book knows, he's about the worst possible dad there is. That's because Old Nick is the man imprisoning Jack's mother in a small shed where Jack's mom has been held for 7 years. Old Nick is guilty of several of the worst kinds of crimes. He's beyond redemption and shown as pure evil. I mean, even through the eyes of Jack, that's the POV we get in this book, we can see that he's terrible. And we, the reader, feel the utmost hatred for Old Nick. Anyway, okay, enough about him. And last on my list of bad dads is the Trapper from The Wolf Road. When she was 7 and lost in the woods after a storm, Elka was rescued by the Trapper. Now, over the next 10 years, he teaches her how to survive in the woods in this post-apocalyptic world that the book is set in. Soon, she sees him as her dad, since he takes care of her and he's given her the skills that she needs to stay alive. Then Elka finds out that the Trapper is accused of awful crimes. He's being hunted by the law because, skip ahead now if you want to avoid spoilers, he's a serial killer and he does it for fun. He enjoys it. Now that Elka is seen as his accomplice, the Trapper is coming to tie up loose ends by taking her out of the picture. So yeah, not the best backwoods father figure a girl could have. What other good or bad fictional dads can you think of? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe. Happy reading.